within our life, we need to have a preparedness for it. So in this particular session, we are going to talk about that how, particularly into HR, we are preparing for the future. So now, my dear friends, in this session one, we are going to talk about like our organizations prepared to face changes in customer and talent needs in the post-COVID ecosystem, because this is very important that when we are talking about this pandemic, so now post-pandemic, now this post-COVID ecosystem, how we are going to manage about it? Are they competitive enough to stay ahead in the market and gauge the changing dynamics? This is also going to be a question. Then our eminent panel of leaders from various organizations across sectors, they are going to discuss what they are doing to be prepared for what is next, and what are the various challenges that they are also foreseeing it. And I can see all these eminent panelists over here, and I can see like how excited they are to like just discuss their thoughts about this preparedness. So my dear friends, without much ado, let me just initiate this session. I would like to give you a quick introduction to all the panelists, and after that, I would like to hand it over to the moderator. And my dear friends, when I say the moderator, so our moderator is going to be Mr. Pritesh Gandhi. He's the solution leader, executive compensation and governance, Aon India. So welcome to this platform. And also in this panel discussion, we are going to have the Chief Human Resources Officer, HDFC Bank, Mr. Vinay Razdan. We are also going to have the Director HR and Chief Human Resources Officer, Bennett Coleman Company Limited, Times of India Group, Mr. Amit Das. I can see that Times of India written in a very bold over there. Welcome, sir. And also we are having in this session the Vice President of SAP Success Factors India, Mr. James Thomas. Welcome to you as well, sir. And as we have got the galaxy over here, I would like to hand it over to the moderator, Mr. Pritesh Gandhi. And I would like to tell you that he's a man of like who's having a different feathers to his cap. So one by one, he's going to unfold it. So, sir, over to you. And I hope this session is going to answer a lot of things that people are having in their minds. Sir.
Thanks for the introduction. It's always good to start the morning with a with thought provoking work. So sometimes we get drawn into regular work. Before we get deeper into how to prepare future of work, I want to pose a simple question to all the HR leaders here, uh, and maybe we can start with Vinay first. And my question is, how are you defining future of work, Vinay? What factors go into it? And if I can push the envelope, is it even defined? Vinay, first I'll go to you.
I think anything answer for into the future is a very easy answer because no one knows what's really going to happen. So it is a question of educated guesses, reading the winds, and seeing the changes which are happening around you. So very clearly, and I may take a little more time in the opening, and you can adjust my time later, Pratish. But my view is as following. I think clearly there was a pre-COVID time view of future, and there's a post-COVID time view of future. And what is the significant shifts which have happened in the pre to post-COVID view of future is primarily two. I think one is the concept of hybrid working has come into vogue, and that has found acceptance. First, people thought it's an aberration, few weeks, few months, and we'll all get back to normal life. And a normal life, doesn't seem to be coming back as we expected, and this is what it is. And all of us have got around to accepting that in our heads. Second is the digital acceptance. And typically, let's say in banking, for example, if you and all of you would have monies to invest, and let's say in the pre-COVID time, if you had a proposal that you were evaluating, I don't think many of you would have been open to be approached digitally for an investment proposal or anything of that sort. You would have preferred to meet your relationship manager from whichever bank or whichever organization that you have your relationship with, and you would have progressed that in that direction. Today, the fact that customers are willing to be approached digitally, on important high net worth decisions is a significant shift, which has really happened. So these two, I think, are fundamental changes that are going to define the future. And if I may take a moment out here, uh, way back in 80s, Peter Drucker had written an article for Fortune in which he had said that this whole business of moving people towards the information is not working out. Because, and he was talking in the context of America, where the subject matter of discussion was that a lot of people are spending time commuting, a lot of people are spending time stuck in the traffic. By the time they come to work, they are exhausted. So, what is the point? And his very prophetic statement then was that Pratish, can you hear me? Am I
Yes,
audible?
yes, Vinay,
Okay.
loud and clear.
There's some change in the screen. So a
Yes.
very prophetic statement then was that this whole thing about moving people to where the work is not working out. Let's move information to where people are. And this is late 80s. And he mentioned in that article that all the things that we need to make this happen are already there. There is fax machine, there is email, there is mobile phone, there is computers in place. So therefore, this is what we should do. But still, it took 30 years for uh, concept of hybrid working, concept of moving information to where people are to come into play, and it has not come into play on its own because of business visionaries thought it like that. It has
Mhm.
come into play because COVID happened, right? So it's an opportunity. It creates an opportunity. Not everyone will use the opportunity. I'm sure many companies will get back to their normal ways of working once the normal times resume.
Mhm.
Many will use it for significantly altering the way they structure and design their organizations and the way they're going to design work into the future. And as far as the bank is concerned, I think we are looking to, uh, perhaps I may be preempting your future question, but I'll just give a brief answer that we are wanting to utilize this opportunity and see what it has for us. So I'll stop there. Over, back to you.
So Vinay, firstly, great points. It's fascinating what Peter Drucker said. Then I read it 10 years back. When I was doing my MBA, I'm sure you would have read it many more years back. And Peter Drucker also said something very interesting. In the short term, we always overestimate the impact of technology, and in the long term, we always underestimate it. So my next question follows that thought process, Vinay. HDFC particularly was a significant leader in digital banking. In many ways, a trendsetter. So for HDFC, which was some somewhat too significantly ahead of the market, how has thought process changed within the bank? I mean, you were already ahead, but COVID, obviously was a was another order challenge none of us anticipated. So, given the maturity of the bank, how has thinking changed on the future of work, particularly post COVID?
So, before I answer that, Pritish, I must make a statement that whatever I'm saying here is in my personal capacity. I'm not representing the bank and making statements on behalf of the bank. So, having said that, I think, like every other organization, including in the banking sector, I think the fact that, and what I just outlined, the fact that digital approach and the acceptance of that and what it opens up for you as customer base, not only in the urban centers, but semi-rural areas, semi-urban areas as well. I think it's a huge opportunity. And if you really see that, I think every organization in the banking sector is looking to leverage that. And the tech changes are such that they offer a level playing field to everyone. So it's a question of how agile you are as an organization to spot the opportunities and leverage them. And like every other organization, I think we'll also like to stay ahead of the curve. But it's not going to be easy because it's not a proprietary or exclusive right that you have to a technology and you have a mutually exclusive arrangement in place. So I think the shift towards digital banking and creating a digital bank within a brick and mortar organization is the direction that the whole banking sector, I think, is moving towards, and HDFC Bank will not be any exception. However, you have to balance that with the fact that there are a lot of frauds also which have started happening at a much accelerated pace in the last 1 year. You know, whether it's insurance, whether it's a recruitment scam, every day I get a mail from someone saying that he's been offered a job by, some one-click solution or one job solution or something like that. So I think looking at the urban, semi-urban and rural areas, we are still looking to expand. We are still looking to have physical branches because people there would like to see the person to whom they are giving their money to. So the comfort, high comfort with everything digital and with all the horror stories that keep on happening from time to time is not going to make it completely a digital world for you there. You have to have your physical presence. You may not have a 10 people branch, you may have a 2 people branch or 3 people branch, but you'll have to have that as well. You have to balance that because there is India and there's Bharat, and you have to balance both in your strategy when you're expanding the market.
Okay, thanks
Over
for
to
that,
you,
Vinay.
Pritesh.
Thanks for that, Vinay. And let me start with the Bharat question first to Amit. So Amit, given just the scale of uh, 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 you know, t- uh, times of India, right? So like where all it gets distributed. I mean, it's so fascinating. I mean, I've traveled extensively to Maoist hit areas, and even there you get it. I mean, you may get it a day later. It's unavoidable, but so for a such deep distribution and then overall impact on media through digitization, how are you looking at future of work and how are you defining it?
Sure, Pritesh. So I think all of us are aware that the business landscape today is going through a highly dynamic kind of a phase of transformation. And the VUCA that we have all been talking about for last 1 decade or more has been, new normals are being created about the VUCA that we are talking about. So I think coming back to your earlier question to Vinay, I think that is relevant to the context of what you have just asked me. I think we, when we attempt to have our kind of a sense on the different critical factors that's shaping the world of work, which includes the world of media as well, which I'll touch upon specifically on the question that you asked. I think we have to talk about, if you have to talk about some of those critical factors, I would say that we have already seen the emergence of this new business model that we have seen for the last decade or so, which we are calling it network orchestrator, with companies like Uber, Airbnb coming in. The business life cycle itself is shrinking rapidly. The average lifespan, all of us know, of the Fortune 500 companies, they have been shrinking so rapidly for the last, in the last 50 years, it's shrunk from an average of 35 years to 18 years. So the business sustainability has become quite difficult and challenging uh, at the same time. The customer expectation, okay, is changing drastically today. It's all driven by choice, convenience, and cost. So also the knowledge-driven networked organization structure, I think when I mentioned about it, the digital disruptions have transformed the way we do business, where technology has been leveraged more and more as a force multiplier to scale up both human intelligence and at the same time the productivity at the workplace. So other critical components that we are witnessing at the workspace is the entry of the new generation of workforce, the employee demographics, where we have multi-generational talent that we are dealing at any given point of time with varying learning and engagement needs, different career aspirations, their different workplace priorities. So this needs to be managed by being an agile and constantly reinvent and transform our current ways of doing things, and what we say in HR parlance, constantly instilling that growth mindset in our talent universe and applying that critical thinking to constantly generate solutions for this kind of an unpredictable and dynamic business need. Now, now coming back to your question, the Indian economy is today what we are seeing is adopting digital at a very breakneck pace, causing series of disruptions in all directions. So the disruptive digital ecosystem will transit many manual tasks to cost-efficient machines and algorithms. For example, if you have to take our example, being in the media business ecosystem, the digitalization of the media industry has been driven primarily by the demand for instant access to kind of a customized content anytime, anywhere. The newsroom analytics, the live streaming of digital content, and social analytics, these are game changers, which is redefining the digital-led innovation roadmap for the media industry. The millennials or the new age workforce that we are finding in today's workspace are highly excited. That's the silver lining. They're highly excited to be part of this digital transformation journey. And that is providing them endless opportunities. And media organizations like us, we are actively leveraging this appetite for embracing this new age technology and drive a seamless transition into the future world of work.
Yep. So let me imagine, Amit, how this is going on, and let me ask us a slightly naughty question. So, at one end of the media industry are innovators like London Top, right? Completely disrupting Hindi news, anywhere, anytime content, making news which traditionally millennials would have considered boring, interesting. You know, at the other end, there are also entities in the BCCL universe like Times Internet. They are in the media context, but they're more and more like technology organizations. So you have London Talk to compete at one end. People reading news in not news like clothes. Using language which wouldn't seem news, making it marketable but still relevant. On the other hand, for BCCL, other technology organizations, those have distinctive cultures, uh, free food, flexible work timings, innovators in that. Now, for an organization as large as BCCL, which has all these resonating and also a very large legacy business, how are you thinking about culture? Like, given the pushes and pulls, internally, firstly, in the Times Internet context, and also externally.
Yeah, so it's a very good question there, Priti. See, as a largely diversified media conglomerate, the largest conglomerate in the country today, we constantly struggle, or we constantly, deliberate on this particular aspect of culture. How do I ensure that every employee, irrespective of whichever pockets or whichever business that he belongs to within the media ecosystem that we have across platforms, be it print and publishing, be it digital, be it radio, television, that they experience the culture the way they want to see the workplace. And that's hyper customization or hyper personalization, if we have to talk about it. And that's been the constant challenge for us, at the same time opportunity, and that's the create the fun at workplace. How do we have, say for example, we have acronymed our culture core values as classic, okay, CLASIC, which is about collaboration, learning, agility, accountability and risk taking, speed, innovation, compassion, and care. While the core values remain the same, the values in action driven by the leadership in different businesses, be it the new age businesses or the traditional print and publishing businesses, how the leadership drives those values in action in their own businesses defines the culture at that place. And that's how we can define the alignment of purpose. And that's what HR, as well as the business leadership, the enterprise leaders, constantly drive in terms of alignment of purpose. So, coming back to the earlier question, I think when we try to imagine a post-COVID world of work, I think all of us need an incredible amount of foresight and planning about this business and the way we manage workplace. Again, across multi-generational talent, managing different kinds of businesses. Some are absolutely new, as you have said, in terms of their digital presence, different culture, different workforce dynamics, or the demographics. Okay, so I think I foresee a simultaneous transformation of what I say the three Ws, the workforce, and workplace in the near future. And we all know the biggest strength of human beings as a species is our resilience and ability to survive. So I think we should definitely come out much more stronger out of the current crisis that hopefully is behind us now, and we are coming back to that recovery mode. But one thing we have to be sure that things will not be the same as before. So I think as organizations and society at large, and so it's true for our organization and a conglomerate like us as well, we have accepted that the change is inevitable. And hence, this is the time we need to start working with those changes rather than against them. So this is the most difficult, yet the most, I would say, exciting phase in any change scenario. And when we need to have this kind of vision that helps us navigate this kind of paradigm shift, but at the same time, we must also have the agility to make the necessary changes on the go.
Great point, Samit. Now, James, coming to you, and I'll ask a question slightly differently to you. So, given how organizations are defining future of work, how how is it impacting very important HR enabler, or I would say a business enabler, such as SAP, and secondly, uh, uh, how is it explicitly translating into how client expectations from you? How are they changing?
Thank you, Pratish. Some excellent points made by Vinay and Amit, my good friends, in setting the context. Just to lead from there, very clearly, digitization is accelerating, and the hybrid work that Vinay mentioned is here to stay and for the future, right? And Amit mentioned the agility and the disruptive nature of businesses today and how dynamic it is getting and the generational shift that is happening. From the way we look at it and the way we are engaging, consumers of technology and digitization, one of the big rebalancing that is happening is technology and humanity coming together, right? Fundamentally, digitization is a process of standardization, harmonization of HR processes. And that's where it starts in terms of how we drive more connected processes in an organization of any size. What COVID has really accelerated is the human dimensions, or the employee is more looking at what is the experience that I'm gaining through my career, my work, my journeys, etc., etc. So moments that matter for an employee is becoming lot more front and center of a digitization strategy. So it is no longer the operational data productivity alone. Those are stable stakes, but there is a very fluid human element coming in terms of how deeply do I understand the employee, how is he today versus how was he yesterday, how will he be tomorrow, am I able to really get the pulse of employees in my organization, and how do I balance technology and digitization with employee experiences. And what we are really looking at is building platforms which bring in a real-time impact to the people dimension in the way the future of work and future of workplaces and workforces, as Amit beautifully put, is reshaping itself. The second dimension which I want to clearly highlight is, I think Amit alluded to this, is the hyper-personalization. I mean, what is happening is digital is becoming native to workforces today, or people, the new generations who are coming in, unlike the older generations, is digitally native. Operating a electronic device, a computer or a mobile phone is native to them. They don't need a book or a guide to actually know how to operate a device. Similarly, applications are becoming intuitive, guided, easy to use in the way the experiences have to be reimagined for employees to deal with it in a very hyper personalized way. So hyper personalization is absolutely in, and it is going to accelerate. So there is a balance between standardization and personalization, that is the other dimension. And added to that, hybrid work has forced flexibility, right? We say that if you continue to do something for 21 days continuously, that becomes a habit. And in the way this pandemic has redefined all of us in the way over the last 1.5 years, a lot of new habits and patterns are setting in. Now, how do you really understand that from an employee context, organizational context? How 360-degree listening or learning modalities are there, and how do you really build that connectedness in your organization across employees to understand those behaviors or change in aspirations, the passion and purpose dimensions of flexibility, and how are you really embedding that into your culture? So there is a redefinition of culture from that perspective happening in the way employee aspirations are shifting. The final point I want to make is there is a huge emphasis coming in on sustainability and diversity and inclusion. I think Vinay did mention the India and the Bharat. That is a classic example of the inclusivity that is needed when we look at India between the divergent workforces that we have. It could be divergence between urban and rural, the India and the Bharat, or it could be between generations. So there are very many types of diversity and inclusion dilemmas that are encountering organizations and leadership today. And these are aspects which will redefine the way digitization will move. And from a platform perspective or approaches, how are we getting real with balancing these aspects, and not technology for the sake of technology, but a technology which is digitizing human endeavors in a way that will redefine human experiences and moments that matter for our workforces and our employees.
So James, let me ask a follow-up on that, and go a little deeper. Who's an employee is also fundamentally changing, right? So we in the network organization, Amit reference, often that value creation is happening to someone who's not an employee. Now, legally, maybe we should start considering them as employees because they're tied to one platform for all practical reasons. But currently they are not, and sometimes HR technology systems only come into the place where when it's an employee, and or may have restricted access for contractors. So as this who's an employee further disrupts, uh, how are organizations navigating that talent pool? Do you see them using your platform deeply for that talent pool as well? And secondly, how are you looking at to evolving the solution for that talent pool?
A brilliant question, Pratish. Absolutely. So, for example, when you look at a HDFC Bank and Vinay's challenges, it extends beyond the employees into, let us say, for example, the agents who sell their products, right? So, when you really provide training or learning and guided learning, you have to extend, let's say, a learning management platform or learning experiences beyond the employees to your extended selling community of maybe 50,000 or 100,000 agents across India. So a talent supply chain is no longer restricted to just your white collar workforce or your blue collar workforce. The entire gig economy and contingent working is dramatically shifting, and that's I think it's a good question on flexibility. What do we mean when we say flexibility, right? Flexibility is not just about full-time employees working from home and working from office. That's the most simplistic flexibility that we can define. Flexibility is all about what if I want to work just 20 hours for Amit and 20 hours for Vinay, right? In a week. So there is a whole lot of flexibility, and as you rightly said, the definition of an employee is dramatically changing, right? What is an employee in the traditional way that we defined in an employee-employer relationship versus in today's inclusive world, what is somebody who contributes something to us, and how do we really provide communication and mechanisms? And I think Amit alluded to this in terms of how do we really, I think Vinay also mentioned this, how do we really reach information to people, right? Earlier, we kept information in one place and made people go there. Gone are the days that we can continue to digitize and ask people to come to where the information is. So the whole shift of this is what is making a significant change to how digitization and technology platforms need to evolve in bringing this balance in the way it is getting seamless across employee categories, across the economy in terms of addressing contingent workforce, contract workforce, extended supply chains, whether it is on the selling side or the buying side. There is a huge talent marketplace emerging there, which is far beyond just the confines of an organization and its employees.
And if I may add to what James have just responded to your very, very relevant question, Pritesh, because see how we are recalibrating the entire talent universe. So today, if you look at the total talent in today's network and symbiotic business world, the talent is constantly getting redefined. So today's talent is any capability across the employee continuum, whether it's your direct workforce, indirect workforce, whether it's your internal workforce or external resources, whoever can create economic value for the enterprise. That's talent for us. So it's completely getting redefined, the way we are looking at talent. And today, if you see, people management is less about extracting performance from an organized few, but more about curating the contribution from limitless many. So the business organizations, we need to leverage this technology ecosystem and this interconnectedness to drive this distributed and dynamic capability management. And if you have to create that future-ready networked organization.
Understood. So Amit, let me start my next question with you, and I'll keep changing the order for each question, just to get balance in the panel. Uh, so Amit, as the hybrid model is here to stay, right? So when you talked about it, pretty eloquently, James validated it, clearly, with the data access, which SAP has, they can validate it through data also, and right now it's evident. So if hybrid work is here to stay, Amit, how do you think organizations are enabling that hybrid work? So like, all of us are working, in a hybrid way, and I think all of us are also privileged, right? So we don't have to necessarily worry about an increased electricity expense and an increased telephone expense. Bandwidth needs to be upped, right? So it's very practical. Somebody may not have had a 100 Mbps connection, before COVID, but now if you don't have 20 Mbps, it's hard to work from home. So if we go look at it holistically, and all these costs are not. I mean, all these are costs. So typically, when somebody came to office, the that ecosystem was providing for these costs. But as you work hybrid, uh, and so how do we enable such employees? So let me not project my views on it, Amit. And so how do you look at it generally? Firstly, because I think Vinay made a good point. So how do you look at it generally? And if you're comfortable, how is BCCA looking at it?
Sure. See, I see a connected world will change the way we work more and more going forward. So as virtual devices, this enables the workplace interactions and communications to make it happen anywhere at any given point of time. The job roles and the careers of employees will become increasingly redefined to fit those kind of a boundaryless models. We need to quickly adapt to rapid technological changes, be it in artificial intelligence, robotics, Internet of Things, which is reshaping the world of work. So I would foresee more and more collaboration between humans and machines or robots, whatever you call it, and this will change the workplace environment. So I think that as what you say, big data analytics, the AI, they will take over the work that was previously performed by humans, and these new job roles will start emerging. So this will be focused primarily with human beings specialized in monitoring, creating, operating, and designing these automated and online processes. The work itself is becoming more and more modular. They're getting broken into small packets, being farmed out by the companies who will act like platforms which synthesize and orchestrate these modular packets to make products and services. So work will increasingly get disconnected from jobs and companies. Some jobs will be done by the machine, some will be requiring physical proximity, some can be managed remotely, or some work can be farmed out to anywhere, which can be carried out by a diverse group of people, who can drive high degree of workforce inclusivity. Another trend that we are observing today is that the workplace flexibility. The workplace flexibility is nothing but the work schedule flexibility that people are looking for. As a result of working from home with no commute, and at the same time 24/7 access to work resources such as laptops, internet connectivity, cloud-based data, things like that. An employee may get an opportunity to fix their own schedule in consultation with their managers, which can benefit the organization, as well as it can help with the correct rostering, which can ensure that there is no downtime and resources are available through the week. But having said that, if appropriately structured, our work will have to be enabled by a workspace that is, any space which allows us connectivity and has a comfortable place to sit. This hot desking, breakout areas, vibrancy, all will, drive that spirit, and obviously we are all concerned about the productivity as well. How do I manage this productivity in this hybrid work arrangement? And that's where you have to lean more and more on the new age workplace technology. So while already we have these co-working models, like, I see more and more of Uberization of workplace. With no need for an official workplace, any desk with laptop and internet connectivity becomes your workspace. But at the same time, while we have been discussing about all this, I think we have to also keep in mind that the remote working will also drastically reduce the social interaction. It will lead to complicated work-life dynamics, and it will definitely cause deterioration of mental health. So this will lead to drop in psychological capital, which we refer as positive emotions, engagement, promoting collaboration, and behaviors, performance. and obviously the employee well-being. So going forward, accelerated globalization, distributed, interdependent network, flatter organization structures, when we have to deal with multi-generational workforce at our workplace, I think we need to have much more innovative, agile, authentic leadership who can encourage this kind of a co-creation and collaboration amongst employee communities, which will get formed more and more, which will get formed based on the shared interest and areas of the employees.
So Amit, let me press a little harder, Amit, and if you allow me to do it. So
Sure.
let's make it real, Amit. Okay. So let's say I'll give my example. So earlier I would go to the Aon office five days a week. Out of those 5 days, at least there would be 10 meetings. Okay, some of these meetings would be at client office. So if they are at client office, the policy would allow you to buy lunch. Sometimes the client will buy lunch for you, sometimes you will buy lunch for the client. Okay. Because I led a team, I would take my team out once a week for having coffee. And again, that's great. Now, why I'm giving this example is that if you look at just those two benefits, meals and entertainment, just those two, you know, they, now if I want to connect with the team, uh, and this is for a hypothetical organization, let me just say that, I'm not seeing a Starbucks voucher pop up, which I can, which I can enable for my team. Or if I'm doing a meeting with Vinay, I'm not sure how our organizations will react if we tell respectively that, both of us ordered lunch for each other. I mean, there may be a question. I mean, why didn't you get it cooked at your home? So let me make it. I'm completely with you, Amit, on what we said. But how are we solving for that on ground person? And again, I'm reiterating. I think all of us are privileged. All these are comfort considerations. But somebody who's at the front line, it's not a comfort consideration, right? It's actually changing that employment experience. So if you look at benefits in detail as one area, and happy for you to pick as many areas as you want, how do you think they need to evolve in this hybrid model?
See, I spoke about the erosion of the psychological capital, and all of us are aware of those happy hormones, that gets secreted in our brain with this oxytocin or whatever. When we have this social bondings, physical proximity, which we cannot do away with, that's a biological phenomenon. All of us as human beings go through, and that definitely will have an impact when we are having this kind of a remote hybrid work arrangement. So I think what we need to have to understand is this one significant outcome of this COVID disruption has been that we have developed a much deeper understanding about this differentiation of work, workforce, and workplace. So while large part of our workforce, for example, our organization, have moved away from this traditional physical workplace, so I think that's what we have to have this new normal defined in our mind. Okay, that physical traditional workplace has been transformed. That will not come back anymore in the same format, same look and feel. So at the same time, our work has been at optimal capacity. You have to ensure that the work is always at an optimal capacity and productivity. Since we have to also at the same time constantly proactively ensure our business continuity as well. So say, for example, in a group like us, a large media conglomerate, as part of the essential media service, we had the always onerous responsibility to deliver the credible and authentic news to our readers and viewers on a daily basis without any interruption. So to ensure this, we had identified business critical employees who were required to attend our offices or plant locations or at the various field locations or distribution workforce for that matter. We also had a large part of our work for the same time who could work remotely and were required to visit their work locations very occasionally without compromising on the outcome and productivity. So going forward in a hybrid work system, what we have decided, we have taken a conscious decision, is to take a 20-20-60 approach, wherein we have already identified 20% of our workforce based on the criticality of the roles that they're playing, who will permanently work from office or plant or their fields where they have to, for the purpose of delivering their outcome or the job or the roles. Another 20% of our workforce will permanently work from home or anywhere for that matter. It's not only work from home, work from anywhere. And the rest 60% of our workforce will occasionally work from office through this what we have created, a hot desking arrangement managed through a digital rostering. Okay, so coming back to other part of the question is, I think it's also important for us to know that the workplace itself has been digital. It's not that we are looking at it now or it's happening now. The workplace has been digital for a long time. Where employees spread across locations and offices connecting digitally, especially the ITS kind of an organization, to various collaborative technology and tools and platforms. But the COVID crisis presented us the kind of opportunity to build a digital workforce moving from a digital workplace. So we have also, as an organization, made significant investments in building those kind of capabilities amongst our employees to be productive remotely. And at the same time, we have also introduced a lot of progressive policies that focus on total wellness quotient and the work-life integration. We have simplified our processes and also at the same time invested in our technological architecture as part of our overall hybrid work arrangement and the strategy. And that takes care of the challenge that you are talking about of people and joining, physically meeting, having a meal together. So those kind of stuff have been taken care through this kind of proactive strategy that we have put together. And also our massive multi-pronged this vaccination drive for employees have also provided the passport to return to normal workplace or new normal workplace that we call. So people who we have identified in terms of playing roles who need to be at office or at fields or at our plants, we ensure that 100% of them have got vaccinated, 100% of their family members have got vaccinated, so that we have given them the passport to come back to office.
Understood. Thanks for sharing, Amit. And I hope everybody does and undertake vaccination. So this is an encouragement. If you have any concerns about the government, should not be projected on your choice of not getting vaccinated. On a lighter note, so Vinay, if I can come to you, and I'll come to I'll share a story, and that will set the context for my question. So when I was doing an exit interview with somebody at Aeon, and I heard something which I've never heard in 10 years of my work with Aeon. I didn't have a friend at Aeon. Typically, if you look at our biggest driver, as Aeon, we always made friends. So like the day I joined 10 years back, somebody told me, you'll make great friends here. And that's been a consistent like theme. But in COVID, I heard from the first time that I don't have a friend. And that like really made me reflect, that, have you missed, like coming to office is so important, right? It's not only about that office environment, it's about friendships, it's about social. So if I broaden the question I asked for to Amit, whether it's work environment, whether it's benefits, whether it's manager attitudes, what do you think Vinay needs to change to make this hybrid work sustainable? And secondly, if you're comfortable in the HDFC journey, how do you see that changing?
So, since you started with a little story, so let me also reply with a little story, which I think is universally known. See, if human beings didn't have a fundamental need to affiliate, you would still be living in jungles, individuals, hunting, and all that. So I think what we must, going back to the pretty much the basics and the start of the civilization as we know, there is a fundamental need that people have to affiliate with each other. And that's why you have people coming together to produce a unit of work or whatever. And I'm not saying industrialization, therefore factories, therefore people didn't have a choice and all those things. Keep that aside. I'm saying that fundamentally people have a need to affiliate. So you have to keep that in mind in whatever hybrid working arrangement that you may come up with. I have thought a lot about it since the COVID started, and I asked a lot of my, people that I know across sectors and in my own team, and I have come to this inevitable conclusion that culture creation is going to be a much tougher exercise in a hybrid working environment, or in a completely remote environment than in the ways that we have known physical workplaces. That's point number two. Point number three is that I think there are opportunities, with serious opportunities, and we just need to go beyond people and lunches and having friends at workplace and all that. I think today at least speaking for myself, my realization of the global warming or climate changes and how it can affect us is far higher than what it was, let's say, 24 months back. And we have seen spate of such incidents, one after another, in the last few months or a year in particular. So I think the fact that workplaces also need to be sustainable workplaces, and what are they going to do about that, is the important point we cannot ignore any longer. A responsible global citizen, and therefore having people, a work unit which can be done remotely, but getting people to work, therefore commuting, using cars, creating your carbon footprint, is something that we have to start thinking about as people who have a important say in designing the workplaces or in organization design. I think there is an opportunity with the current crisis affords us in terms of bringing in the sustainability aspects much into much sharper focus in the organization, and the org design should factor that in. I mean, at HDFC Bank, I'm very, very happy to share with you, by year 31, 32, which is next 10 years, we want to be carbon neutral. And that's going to be a challenging thing, given that we are close to about 160,000 people, a lot of branches, a lot of paperwork, a lot of commute. So it also depends how you measure all these things. But that's an important point. Second point I want to make here is that you know uh, there are there are talent which has walked out of the talent pool because of various compulsions, and primary sufferers in that situation have been the women, because of the issues that confront them in our country. I think there's a huge opportunity for looking at, as James rightly said, flexibility is going to be a key. And it's not only about having a one contract of employment, which most organizations tend to have a standard contract of employment, which everyone gets offered. But it can be something which you can leverage to have flexible contracts with hours defined, maybe a job split into two people, those kind of arrangements, which can tap into a huge section of educated workforce, particularly women workforce, which has walked out of the workforce because of managing house, managing children, XYZ. Also, the fact that what we are looking at it very closely is people with disability. You know, so this is hybrid working arrangement provides you another opportunity to look at less privileged sections of society, which possibly get left behind in the country like ours. I mean, who cares? I mean, the competitiveness and the race is so fast and so hard that the bus is never going to stop for a handicapped guy to get on. I mean, people need to run to get onto the bus, and the bus moves on before you have got on. So you keep running. And a person who's deaf, who's blind, can't walk, has got other problems, who cares? So that's how, unfortunately, when you have 1.3 billion, 1.4 billion, it happens. So these are opportunities, I think, that the current situation affords us, where we should look at starting serious initiatives, if not already done. I'm sure many of these organizations which are represented here and elsewhere also would have done much more in these areas, but it's something that we want to make a big difference in. Also, sometimes when I reflect on this question of chatbots and AI and ML and all these things, I go back to the fundamentals. Ultimately, not everything can be done by an individual. You will need teams to come together to create something, to produce something, to brainstorm. So, what is the right balance? I think organizations will have to find that for themselves. In our environment, in the banking sector, it's a regulated environment, which means that right through the pandemic, our branches had to open. Only in the red zones were we allowed to close our branches. In amber zones, with which we had, classified depending on the levels of infection, we had truncated rostering of people. But in green zones, we had full operations. And I would like to share a figure here, a very distressing figure for us in the bank. We lost almost 200 plus people since start of pandemic, out of which 111 were clearly defined as COVID deaths. but our balance 40-50 deaths went on to about 100. So a lot of it would have been induced by the situations which led either recovery of COVID led to something or other. So we don't have the opportunity and the flexibility like any other organization to do anything. We are a regulated entity, and we have certain responsibilities in that sense, and certain laws that we must follow. So even in, for example, in a banking environment, you don't even have access to internet. Now, this will to IT company like SAP and to a media company like Amit, it'll be a shocker. I mean, their lives are on the cloud and on the Google and God knows what all. But in a banking environment, you don't even have access to internet. So our first challenge in this whole situation was to get access to people, and people have done a fantastic job of ensuring during the COVID times when everyone was scared to step out, our people were out there. Our IT professionals were out there, our operations people were out there, and all the ATMs that you went to, I'm sure you would have never found a ATM didn't have cash in it. So all these things are important, and they have to be kept in mind. So certain aspects of flexibility are afforded to us as an organization. Certain aspects are not because they are on the regulatory side. But whatever is afforded to us, I think we would like to pursue hybrid working. We have done extensive working on that, and we have a plan in place basis which right now, because there's an impending third wave, whether it will come, not come, all those issues are out in the open. So we have not really taken concrete steps there, but we have committed ourselves as a team that we want to be more environment friendly in the way we design our organization, the way we create our carbon footprint. We like to reduce that. We like to be carbon neutral in uh, 10 years, and more focus on things which we were not able to earlier in a 9 to 5 kind of environment, getting talent pools with more flexible work arrangements. And I think we'll have to work creatively on the culture aspect. It's going to be very difficult because what will tend to happen is that how do you do leadership in a situation where everyone is just an icon on a screen? How do you bring about the personalization aspect of it? And in my experience, I've seen a lot of issues which have come to me in the last 1 year. They happened because a leader delivers a tough message in a forum, and but after the meeting would have got over in the earlier situation, he would have or she would have stepped out and would have tapped a person on the shoulder and said something which would have sort of given the message to the other person that things are okay. Now, those options are not there, opportunities aren't there. So it's creating friction, it's creating difficult to lead teams. And what models will have to be put in place? Uh, People will have to come occasionally. You will have to build a regimen around that. You have to measure it. On the positive side, I think the work will become far more tangible and concrete in terms of outcomes. Orientation will be far higher because you don't have the luxury of supervising a person at workplace whole day. So you will you will see a tangibilization or outcome orientation, which will come. So from a role based hiring, you will possibly shift to more towards outcome based hiring situations, which I think is good. Nothing wrong with that. But the softer aspects, I think, will be a challenge which need to be really balanced out properly by each organization given their environment. Back to you, Pritesh.
Hey, thanks, Vinay. Like great points. I mean, I got several points, but Vinay, I want to press uh, uh, more on one particular point. Uh, as organizations look at hybrid working and look to sustain it, obviously a lot of things change, right? So, do we need as much office space? Maybe not. Now, in your context, branch is also an office space. So, even if it becomes fully hybrid, those branches are not going anyway. But there's obviously significant workforce, you know, uh, beyond the branches. Branch itself may not need as many individuals, like you mentioned. So there are some tangible uh, cost savings, which organizations can have, um, um, from a balance sheet perspective, in hybrid work, and then there are some tangible costs also, getting access, right? So in a banking environment, getting secure access is probably like the biggest challenge, if not the challenge, like the number one challenge. And then there are the softer um, uh, uh, aspects, right? uh, uh, like I said, our benefits continue to resemble maybe 1990s, or mostly if we talk about in at an India Inc. level. But I mean, they're not relevant for future like hybrid working. So I'm not saying they're not valued, but is it really relevant? So how do you see that balancing happening? Do you see, is it like opportunistic cost saving, or do you see it's looking at the entire ecosystem which with employees also be a part of the ecosystem? So that's my question.
So, Pritesh, there are two parts to your question. One is the infra-related savings potential that every company would have by having a hybrid model. Now, that really depends from organization to organization and how much of, I mean, if you're going to let go of a whole building, obviously there's going to be a saving. But if you're going to have 10 floors and all 10 floors, you will need 50% people to come in, then it's not really going to help you. It may help you with less coffee and less napkins and, those kind of things which are not going to be substantial. So perhaps that's why in the IT sector you have a lot of statements coming in that 3/4 of the workforce will be from home and those kind of things. I personally doubt whether that will ever happen. I think that's a huge shift in the way of working, and it goes contrary to the way people like to live their lives. But the future is there for us to experience and see where it's going to go. So that is one aspect of it, and I really don't know where you are leading that question to in terms of whether part of that cost saving should go to the employees or whether as a bank we are spending a lot on providing access. Yes, we have to spend a lot on these things because a lot of modernization, a lot of from desktop to laptop shifting, all those things will happen. There's a considerable expense involved. Having said that, let me come to the second point that you are making on, the benefits are old style and not relevant any longer. So I don't think that problem is today's problem. I think that opportunity has been looking at the HR fraternity for a long time. The fact that when we look at a customer base, we tend to segment the customer base and we look at the particular needs that each customer segment has and then accordingly design product and services. Somewhere we perhaps need to approach the benefits through that lens for our internal employee base only also. And there is a huge opportunity there. I think besides the benefit, which are hard in terms of monetary or loans, for example, which is a benefit that you could have in a company. I think to me, bigger benefits are around flexibility and convenience that you can provide to people, so they have more control on their lives. You know, also, not to take away from the fact that why should you have one size fits all benefit plan? I think that needs to be completely. There's a huge opportunity if you're going to have. I mean, on the other side, you have one employment contract being given to everyone also. So it's the same story. The organization have run in a certain way for long, and the business was happening. So no one really had a need to go back and look at all these things differently. Possibly, there's a sense of there's a catharsis which has happened now, and everything is up for a discussion, zero-based budgeting approach. So therefore, everything is on the table to be discussed. But I agree with you. I think there is a huge opportunity and potential for benefits to be sized up for different demographics of employees that you have. And but like I mentioned to you, I think flexibility and convenience are going to be a key, and how you're going to stitch that into your benefit plans uh, and in your work design is going to be it could be a game changer for you because people want at the end of the day everyone wants a little more control on their lives than they have. I think anything an organization can provide which fits into that particular need of people will work well, well for them. Back to you, Pradesh.
So when if I have to summarize this point, so you're saying that benefits opportunity has existed forever, maybe for
Absolutely,
decades.
absolutely. No, I will not say
And
forever. I will not say forever. I think in 80s you were lucky if you got a job in a good company.
yep.
And you would get transferred without anyone consulting you that we are about to transfer you. So those it was a different era. I think this whole thing is really this talent ball game, best employer, everything started off in 2000 plus time. 90s was the time a lot of new companies came, new models came, American and post realization. But 2000 was the early 2000 was a time when IT sector took off, and that was a time when Infosys was the first best employer in the company, and that's the first time corporates woke up that there is something called best employer.
Yes.
Obviously, IT industry was at the vanguard of taking the industry global, so they had to match up very quickly to global standards. So they perhaps adapted the best because their business was dependent on that. But I think, particularly for last 10, 15 years, I think this opportunity has been there and it's not been leveraged. I think it is something that can be done, uh, which, which makes sense. I mean, you do it for customers. Why won't you do it for your own people?
Yeah. So Vinay, has COVID made it a burning platform yet, or is it still uh,
Not really. Not really. See, what COVID has made it into a burning platform is whether I will have a job and whether my job is going to stay or go.
hmm,
Because let's not forget the fact that COVID has had a huge impact across sectors and across the whole economy.
hmm,
And there are millions of people who have lost their jobs in the formal sector, in the semi-formal sector, and so on and so forth. So I think I don't think this is a burning platform. I would not label it such. I think in today's time, job security and ensuring that you are secured on that front will be the primary concern of most people.
got it? Got it. Now, James, coming to you, and there's some like uh, uh, I would say consultant thought going into whether this acceleration of digitization is a blip, uh, uh, particularly in the COVID context. So, we ran a survey, and the biggest change agent today, James, is not the CEO. In fact, CEO ranked COVID as the biggest change agent. So if you ask the company who's driving the most change, there's COVID, maybe 80%, and then the CEO is at 30%. So, in that sense, the change agent has moved beyond beyond the executive team. So my question for you, James, is how do you see this acceleration of digitization? Do you see it's going to last, or do you see organizations regressing, uh, to older ways of working? And secondly, organizations which are accelerating digitization, what are the new demands it is placing on an organization such as SAP?
Great. Thank you, Pradesh. I think for a moment I forgot that I'm a panelist in this amazing points being made, and I was just listening in and enjoying, the variety of thoughts and perspectives. So amazing. So coming to, I mean, there is acceleration of digitization, I think, is here to stay for sure, right? And it's definitely accelerating. The relative maturity of how it will accelerate for different segments, as I think Vinay alluded to on the benefit side, one size fits all digitization is not going to play out. Because when you look at the larger India, if you look at the Bharat and the MSMEs, their drivers to digitization has got its own nuances. To a large enterprise, which is IT savvy, as Vinay just mentioned, some of the sectors like uh, technology or manufacturing, some of the sectors of manufacturing are quite ERP mature, IT mature. There, the digitization acceleration is in different segments. So, and what is that? So at one level, if you look at organizations which are maturing into processes or trying to standardize their processes, it is about not as much of deep functionality or processes that they are looking for, but they want a little bit of many things. And how do they make it happen in an easy to use, simplified way is what one segment which we see very clearly asking for and driving towards. So that is the phase of maybe a standardization, I would say. Still digitization driving that standardization in many ways. On the other end of the extreme, we have organizations which are standardized, and I think the points made by Amit and Vinay, this productivity culture or a hyper attention to productivity. Obviously, when I alluded to that shifting to outcomes in role definitions and in how we are pursuing work, but how do we shift and rebalance this productivity culture to a caring culture, right? I think COVID has really thrust it on pretty much everyone that we need to be more caring to our employees, to each other as humanity. So there is a empathetic, caring view. Even in India, as Vinay said, we are a 1.3 billion. Who cares about a lot of things that happen? Whether it is we chase opportunities like no other country possibly, because opportunities are so few against the supply that we have. So there is a compromise that is always there when we look at empathy, culture, the mental health aspects that Amit alluded to. Now, my view is one of the significant changes of what digital platforms are today looking at is building a improved culture of listening, right? From being directional. I think Amit again mentioned authentic leadership. Now, authentic leadership can only happen if we have better listening opportunities to our employees. And today, what digitization is really enabling is creating a big level playing field to this listening concept. Otherwise, leaders, managers had their own groups in which listening occurred. How do you democratize listening, right? And one of the biggest things that we are seeing this in the shift of rebalancing of a caring culture at the same time an outcome-oriented culture is improving our listening abilities and real time to people. I will just give you an example, right? When we look at performance management, for example, in a traditional way, we do it maybe once a quarter, once a year. You have rating scales, which we are all used to for years, 1 to 5, 1 to 10, somebody is 1, somebody is 4, etc., right? Now, today, where is it moving? Depending on the industry, the maturity of the organization, for example, in SAP, we have given away these rating scales long back. We have what are called SAP Talk. And anyone can have these talks with one-on-one employees, individuals, for any number of frequency through the month, through the year, and you register inputs, you share feedback, and that talk tracks become the basis to assessing how employees are performing, right? So it's fundamentally changing performance management on its head in terms of while you need outcomes, what really delivers those outcomes, right? How do you really understand employees differently, motivate, create those drivers differently? How do you measure it? How do you give feedback? So there is a huge technology shift and digitization shift to coming out with platforms which are more real time, which can gather these feedback in a very constructive manner. And surprisingly, I'd like to share, a lot of times we think that moments that matter, and in this hyper personalized world, employee experiences are unique for each employee, right? But the reality through these cohort listening or 360-degree listening across an organization, maybe of 500 employees or 50,000 employees or 500,000 employees, what we find is when you really do these cohort listenings over a period of time, you will realize that some patterns emerge. Because fundamentally, there are certain cultural moorings of an organization, and there are some clear patterns of how and what an organization stands for, and what the entire inclusive people drive that culture towards. Now, if you want to make interventions to it, through this listening, you will understand the change in patterns or habits or behaviors that are emerging. And that is a powerful tool, powerful mechanism to shift this change in the way COVID and the pandemic is forcing us to become more caring, more relevant. One last point I want to make, I think Vinay made a very, I would say, amazing view on the current scenario on this sustainability and convenience, right? Now, all of us go, today we still come from the old school thought of linear economies, right? The entire shift to circular economies of recycling and the carbon footprint example that Vinay gave is so real. And the challenge is some of the older generations, the leadership itself is getting questioned by younger generations on some of these aspects, be it climate change, what we are facing on the streets today or in countries today, what we are facing through the carbon related challenges. There's a huge shift of, I would say, reverse mentoring that is happening from our younger generations to older generations on how sustainability and convenience need to be embedded as part of our organizational culture and how we drive the balance between profitability and stakeholder management, right? So very clearly, and you cannot democratize this, you cannot scale it till you have a foundation digitally, because we are also getting more digitally native and socially digital. So there is no escape from the fact that the convergence of social and digital will enforce we getting more smarter and creative with the way we apply digitization to real life situations.
Yeah, completely, James. And I think, I, I mean, if the heart of digital is not human, then what's the point? So I think you beautifully talked about, that digital and human needs to come together, uh, uh, and you also talked about something which I found very interesting, which is how to find that balance between a one size fits standardized, model to a little bit of everything, or the best of everything. So James, when we look at your organization, SAP, how are you planning to return to work, and and for which teams is it a priority? And by return to work, I obviously mean returning to office. I mean, all of us have continued to work in the pandemic.
Yeah. No, I think it's something when I keep talking to the leaders in the industry, there are different views to it that happens. At SAP, what we have done actually something possibly which is quite radical. I don't know, it is out in the market for about a couple of months or more now. We have defined that uh, it's not just a post-pandemic scenario or currently, forever we have shifted to a 100% trust-based culture and 100% flex work. Now, what that means is every employee, independent of the function or the geography or the nature of job that they do, right? Whether it is in our back-end operations, whether it is engineering, whether it is customer management, whether it is sales, marketing, independent of the functions, we have said it is anytime, anywhere. What we are going to look at is trust the employees fundamentally in the way they will evolve to create the outcomes that we stand for and the purpose and the vision that we stand for. So very clearly, there is a dramatic shift in the way we are internally trying to converge the passion and the purpose, right? And some of the aspects of sustainability, inclusion are governing the new purpose we are redefining. So we want to create platforms or solutions or software, whichever way you look at technology, for organizations to enable them to be more sustainable. To what Vinay asked, we would like to really serve Vinay. How can we as a platform enabler provide better mechanisms to sustain and be more drive those sustainability dimensions for organizations? And we are doing that ourselves. I thought, frankly and personally, the 100% trust based shift and a 100% flex shift is very radical in thought, and it is not easy to execute on it, right? Because in different countries, the cultures that we have in India, for example, we work for 16 hours and create productivity maybe for 6 hours, because we are a joint family culture. We like to chat about our families, our spouses, our kids, in offices, and that's why we work for 16 hours in office, but our productivity may be only for 6 hours, whereas another country, maybe in Nordics or in Europe, they only work for 6 hours and produce maybe output for 8 hours, right? So fundamental cultures across countries are different. So driving a 100% flexible trust-based culture in an organization which cuts across hundreds of 100+ countries, in my view, is a very radical shift. But I think that epitomizes what's going on in the people dimension and across the world. And organizations are starting to embrace it in different, I would say, at different levels, in different stages of maturity. And everyone, I think, is assessing at leadership as well as across the organization to what extent can we embrace, which side of it. And it is, as Amit started the conversation, the VUCA times or the volatile, ambiguous times. I would say I have never seen in my 30 years of working career a disruptive phase across 360-degree as much as I'm seeing today.
Completely. Like as they say, right? The rate of change is slowest right now, and obviously it means it's always getting faster and faster. So James, uh, in this 100, so firstly it's like fascinating to know the 100% trust and 100% flex culture, and James, hopefully I'll check with you in 6 months time. Have you been able to practice it for your team? you know uh, uh, Sometimes uh, as leaders, all of us believe that we are working on the most important issues, and we are also, like, I mean, I'm not taking away from that. But we then regress to ways which sometimes run counter to that. So all I can say is fascinating. All the best in that journey. Amit, if I can come to you now, although you already talked about the 2020-60 model, if I got my notes right, and you also talked about vaccination passport, which was again fascinating. I hope you have it for visitors also. Then I'll feel comfortable visiting your offices. So, how's
Most
return
welcome.
to how's return to work? Like, what's the plan?
See, I think one thing is very clear, that I'm sure the COVID vaccine will be soon be considered as one of the most important, critical factor for us to decide on who to get back to work. And I spoke about this 2020-60 model, that 20% of the people who will be permanently asked to work from office or any locations or from the field of their workplace uh, have to get compulsorily vaccinated. So, as an organization, we have ensured that the vaccination status is considered as the most essential factor while deciding the entry of any individual. It's not necessarily the employees, And the reason I'm saying is that whether it's any indirect contractual workforce, clients, vendors, or any stakeholders for that matter, who are needed to enter our office or plant premises for business need. So every person who enters our premise has to be mandatorily respond to certain questions, which we have put on our digital health monitoring app, which captures their vaccination status as well. Okay. So at the apex level of the organization, what we have decided is that we have to get 100% of our employees vaccinated within a predefined targeted date. And I'm happy to share that we have, through our relentless, multi-pronged, efforts, we have been able to lead to around close to 97-98% of our eligible workforce, because few percentage of employees, they are not eligible because of medical reasons. They have been vaccinated within the deadline that we set for ourselves. And this has been possible because of the continuous, awareness sessions that we have conducted for our employees through our panel of medical experts, numerous vaccination camps organized by us across the office and plant locations across the country, the one-on-one telecalls that our HR business partners have made with each of our employees who showed non-vaccinated in their daily reports that's been generated by the digital app that we have, and also guiding them for immediate vaccination through various tie-ups that we have done with our intermediaries, hospital networks, service providers, for prioritized and convenient vaccination for our employees as well as their family members across the country. So I think this 2020 approach that we have decided to adopt for our hybrid work arrangement going forward will consider the vaccination status of an employee as a critical factor to decide their work arrangement mapping. And while we have not given any kind of a incentive for the employees to get vaccinated, but I think the right combination of push and pull by the functional managers, giving them the accountability and ownership, and the single-minded focus to achieve this aspirational target of getting 100% employees vaccinated within a predefined timeline has actually helped us accomplish our objective.
Uh, Understood. And it's I think 97% is great. I mean, uh, I, uh, I mean, kudos. And Vinay, how about you? What's the plan of returning to office, and how you? I mean, in some ways, it, part of your workforce was always in office, but if you look at it
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
in a broader context, what's the roadmap like?
So, Pritesh, first I must say that surprisingly, we have been able to manage running the organization during this whole time. I mean, if you ask me this question in March of last year or April of last year, I thought that things are going to become very difficult. So that is, typical Indian spirit for you. I mean, come whatever, we all used to working against the headwinds. So, like in every other organization, in our organization also people stepped up and sort of delivered. So, uh, surprisingly, we find that we are able to, do the job, and in fact, our productivity levels are pretty high. In the sense that you're not wasting time going from one meeting to another and so on and so forth, and a lot of stuff is happening. I mean, both sides. But keep that aside for a moment. I think right now the big if is around the third wave, and we were getting ready to return to work actually in March April time frame. Few months back before the second wave came in. And after that, I think there's a sense of wariness people have, and as an employer, we also have. We don't want to push anyone in that direction unless there is a kind of a certainty that the third wave is not going to happen. But if you see the news coming from US and UK and Australia and many other parts of the world, it does give you a pause. So I think no one wants to be in a hurry to do anything right now. It's a bit of a wait and watch at the moment. And as you rightly said, we have a large workforce still coming to office, and a lot of us are voluntarily going to office on a once a week, twice a week kind of a thing. But there's no diktat in the organization. I am aware of many organizations which have put out a expectation that you are supposed to come twice a week or once a week. Our organization hasn't done that yet because we find that the work is getting done. There's no point putting additional stress on people on a sensitive issue, which can result in serious consequences. So it's no point going there. Back to you, Pratish.
Yeah, and Vinay, do you ever see that diktat being relevant, um, uh, or have
Well,
you crossed that?
it's against the constitution.
Yeah.
You can't ask anyone to endanger their life. If they believe that their life is going to be
No,
in
no,
danger by carrying out your
I,
instructions, then
I
constitutionally they are protected.
no, no, Vinay, my question wasn't in the COVID scenario. I'm saying in the post-COVID scenario, do
Yeah,
you
yeah.
think we have like gone beyond the need for organizations to expect employees to like come to work?
So it depends, from a culture creation point of view, from team bonding point of view, from leadership immersion point of view, from rolling out new processes point of view, awareness building, communication. There will be a number of reasons why you want people to come to work. You may not want them to come to work 5 days a week, but you may say once in certain defined frequency, come together as a team, and you may do some bonding exercise there on, or there could be many things. There could be a brainstorming that you need to do. A new leader has taken over, then your introduction of the new leader, or a lot of new members are coming to our team. So I think that will necessitate people coming and meeting, whether they come and meet in a physical work environment of yours or whether you will lease out spaces, because you may not need permanent infra then. For such things, those are the choices organizations will have to make.
Got it. So this is my my last question, and my last question, Amit, I'll start with you. What do you think is like most important for you to like continue to be successful, as you navigate future of work? And if you can keep your answers short and crisp, this is the only question I'm making that request in.
Yeah, so
I
I
think
find
go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
Amit, my question was to you, so if you can start first, and then to James, and then we'll come to Vinay.
yeah, so I think I firmly believe that organizations who can successfully navigate technology and at the same time maintain that human touch while being agile. I think James touched upon this, will eventually emerge as winners in such a hybrid work arrangement. The anxiety and stress of remote working and the physical distancing that we will all witness or experience. Yeah, I think it has to be taken care by building a culture of recognizing and fostering that trust. Again, that trust index that again James touched upon, collaboration, learning agility, and innovation. So that the people view this change as an opportunity to enhance their capabilities, adapt, and lead an much more enriching life, and not be kind of engulfed with the fear of uncertainty, ambiguity, and threat of extinction.
Wonderfully put. James, most important, or I mean, I know it's tough to pick one, but what do you think is most important? And I'll give you the choice. You can answer it either for SAP, as a significant business leader there, or you can answer it for your clients. So I'll leave that choice to you.
No, I think very clearly what I would like to sum up is, disintermediation through digitization and its acceleration, from looking at humans as machines or capital alone, the traditional human capital view to people, shifting to human experiences and managing human experiences in a real world is where this will shift. And digitization is going to be the prime driver, as I said, to democratize this shift in terms of we understanding our people and human endeavors better, and get a little more seamless and inclusive in the way we look at employees, from the restrictive contracting ways of the way we looked at full-time employees or contract employees, but it is getting more inclusive and diverse. And that's how digitization will drive the democratization of some of these things.
So, Vinay, you get the last word. So, same question. What do you think?
Could you repeat your question, Pratish?
What's most important to continue to be successful in the future of work agenda? Like topmost consideration.
So I think to me it boils down to it's more of a hope than a production of any sorts. But I hope that in a situation where everyone was brought to the same level, from a person in a penthouse in Malabar Hills to a person in Dharavi slum in Bombay, there was an appreciation of each other as human beings and the crisis facing the whole humanity. That also came into the organization in terms of sensitivity. It came into our lives in terms of the way we supported a lot of people who help us out in our day-to-day lives, the maids, the drivers, so on and so forth. I would really hope that a lot of that continues in the way organizations are managed and designed and run into the future.
Well, wonderful closing point. Thanks for taking all my questions sportingly and allowing me to push the envelope at one or two places. Bhavna, back to you. Bhavna, you may be at mute, Bhavna. At least you're not audible to us.
Before she comes on, I just wanted to thank Amit and James. I think it was very illuminating to be part of this panel. It was wonderful to hear the views expressed, and thank you very much.
Same here, Vinay, and it was absolutely a pleasure to be part of this panel, getting engaged in meaningful conversation for the last 1.5 hours. Absolute delight. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Amit. Yeah.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pratish, you too.
Thanks,
This would have been the
this from your side too.
Thank you, Vinay.
You have saved the lunch which you would have bought for us had it been a physical environment.
or vice versa, Vinay.
Thank you all so
You
much.
made us do the hard work.
Shilpa, Shilpa, you're still on mute. Shilpa, you're on mute.
I think her mic is showing green, so she is not able to come.
Okay. Thank you all so much. We'll close here and we'll see look into the technical aspect of Shilpa not being able to say. But thank you so much. Thank you all.
Thank you everyone.